will be watching this and her friends and plan to take me out and think I don't know. I'm just laughing at them. I'm laughing. I shake their hands still. Because I know they ain't got the arse right because they know what fucking happened after. But I know I'm on him. And what they don't realise, I'm on yous.
Paul Massey's life is a tale that intertwines the gritty streets of Salford near the Manchester Ship Canal with the ruthless underworld of organized crime. Born in the 1960s, Massey grew up in a town where toughness was a necessity, was not an option. By the 1970s, he and his close friend Paul Doyle were well-known hooligans with a notorious reputation for instigating brawls with bouncers across Manchester, particularly in the pubs and clubs of Piccadilly. The rough-and-tumble environment of Salford, coupled with Massey's inclination toward violence, set the stage for his future as one of Manchester's most feared criminal figures. In the 1980s, as Salford and Manchester were reeling from the effects of industrial decline, many young men, including Massey, saw little opportunity for a legitimate future. Like many of their contemporaries from Manchester, Massey and his friends turned to crime, heading to Amsterdam to make money through various illegal means. The group, often referred to as the Salford Lads, were implicated in a range of criminal activities, including the use of stolen credit cards, counterfeit money-armed robbery, and commercial burglary. These endeavors were part of a broader strategy to exploit the opportunities that arose from Manchester's economic downturn. Massey's involvement in the burgeoning club scene of Manchester during the late 1980s and early 1990s marked a significant shift in his criminal career. The Hacienda, a nightclub that became the epicenter of the Manchester music scene, attracted clubbers from all over the UK and helped to rejuvenate Manchester's image. However, this revival also brought with it the attention of rival drug gangs who were eager to profit from the influx of visitors. Massey's group quickly positioned themselves as key players in this lucrative market. The Salford firm, with Massey at its core, was instrumental in controlling the security at many of Manchester's most popular night spots. This control was often enforced through violence and intimidation, with Massey and his associates ensuring that clubs and promoters fell in line with their demands. Those who resisted were met with brutal retribution. For example, one pub landlord who opposed Massey's influence was severely beaten, losing an eye in the process. Another rival who tried to take over the management of the Hacienda later found the decapitated head of his dog placed on the pool table at his home pub, a chilling message that Massey was not to be crossed. Massey's close association with the Noonan brothers, Damien and Desmond, further solidified his power in Manchester's underworld. The Noonans, a large Irish family from Manchester, were deeply involved in organized crime, with Damien Noonan known as one of the hardest men in the city. Damien was installed as the head doorman at the Hacienda, a position that allowed the Salford firm to exert even more control over the nightclub scene. However, the Noonans' reign was cut short by tragedy. Damien died in a motorcycle accident while on holiday, and Desmond was stabbed to death by a crack dealer in South Manchester. Despite these setbacks, Massey's influence only grew. He inspired a fierce loyalty among his followers, who were willing to mobilize at a moment's notice to solve any problems that arose in the nightclubs across Manchester. In the early 1990s, he was even blamed by a local ward councillor for the noisy environment in the area, although these claims were later dismissed in court. Massey's ability to rally large groups of young men from the estates of Salford made him a formidable figure in the city's nightlife. Massey's involvement in Manchester's underworld was not limited to the nightclub scene. In the mid-1990s, the city was gripped by a violent feud between two rival drug gangs from the Cheetham Hill and Moss Side areas. As the violence escalated, senior figures in Manchester's gangland organized a truce, and Massey played a key role in brokering peace between the warring factions. His efforts to mediate between the rival gangs were not without risk. Gang members arrived at meetings wearing bulletproof vests, fearing that they might be walking into an ambush. During this period, Massey was interviewed by journalist Peter Walsh. Reflecting on the importance of reputation and credibility in the underworld, Massey stated, "If I give you my word, I'm not going to move the goalpost because if you go back on your word, you lose your reputation, and then you lose your credibility. That is no good." This code of honor, although rooted in criminality, was something Massey adhered to throughout his life. earning him respect even among his enemies. However, Massey's attempts to broker peace did not shield him from law enforcement. The police were determined to bring him down, targeting him and his associates in a series of operations. Despite the efforts of 30 witnesses to testify against him in court following a fight outside a nightclub, none would actually come forward, illustrating the fear and respect Massey commanded. Nevertheless, he was eventually convicted of a separate offense, stabbing a man in the groin during a nightclub altercation, and was sentenced to 14 years in prison. When Massey was released from prison in 2012, he returned to a city that had changed dramatically. Salford was more violent, and the gangs that had emerged were younger and more ruthless. Despite these changes, Massey attempted to transition into a more legitimate role, even running for mayor of Salford. Although his campaign was unsuccessful, it revealed a different side of Massey, one that was humble, honest, and genuinely concerned about the future of Salford. In a rare interview, he spoke about his vision for the city, showing that despite his criminal past, he wanted to contribute positively to his community. However, the police believed that Massey was still deeply involved in the criminal underworld, particularly with a group known as the A-Team. This collective of 50 criminals from Manchester and Liverpool was known for protecting each other and profiting from various illegal enterprises. Stephen Britton, the founder of the A-Team, looked up to Massey as a mentor, and Massey's influence within the group was significant. As tensions between the A-Team and their rivals, the anti-A-Team, escalated, a series of violent attacks occurred across the city, culminating in the murder of Paul Massey. On the evening of July 26, 2015, Paul Massey's life came to a violent end. After attending a meeting with a member of the A-Team, Massey stopped at a local shop to buy a bottle of Bacardi. He then drove home in his silver BMW 5 Series, unaware that he was being followed. As he pulled into his driveway on Manchester Road, a hitman approached, dressed in head-to-toe combat gear and armed with an Uzi submachine gun. The assassin opened fire, inflicting over 20 gunshot wounds on Massey, who died at the scene from catastrophic injuries. Massey's murder sent shockwaves through Salford and the wider Manchester area. His funeral was attended by hundreds of mourners, including prominent figures from the criminal underworld. John Kinsella, a close associate of Massey, was one of the pallbearers. Kinsella, who was described by the police as a fixer who helped resolve issues for people, including footballers like Steven Gerrard, would later be assassinated in a similarly brutal manner. The war between the A-Team and the anti-A-Team intensified following Massey's death. It wasn't until May 2018 that the police finally made significant progress in their investigation into Massey's murder. Mark Fellows, a man known as the Iceman due to his cold-blooded nature, and his accomplice Stephen Boyle, were arrested and charged with the murders of both Paul Massey and John Kinsella. The trial, which lasted 26 days, revealed the extent of Fellows' involvement in the killings. Fellows, who was obsessed with cleanliness due to a colostomy bag he had fitted as a child, meticulously planned the murders, using GPS tracking technology and night vision hunting scopes to stalk his targets. He was paid £10,000 to kill Massey, a sum that reflected the level of danger involved in taking down one of Manchester's most feared criminals. During the trial, it emerged that Fellows had also been a target of violence. He was shot in the backside outside his grandmother's house, narrowly avoiding a fatal injury. Despite this, Fellows continued his criminal activities, showing no remorse for his actions. He was ultimately convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment, along with Boyle, for the murders of Massey and Kinsella. The conviction of Fellows and Boyle marked the end of an era in Manchester's underworld, but the legacy of violence and gang warfare that Massey had been a part of continued to haunt the city. The story of Paul Massey is one of hard realities, and even harder choices. From his early days navigating the rough streets of Salford, he carved out a path that made him both a local legend and a marked man. His life, filled with contradictions, showcased a man who was both feared and respected, a criminal who cared deeply for his community. Massey's story is a reminder that even those who live by the sword can have a complex and multifaceted character. While his criminal activities brought him notoriety, his efforts to give back to Salford in his later years showed that he was more than just the sum of his crimes. Massey was a man who, despite his flaws, was deeply loyal to his friends and family. using his influence not just to gain power but also to help those around him. Today, Paul Massey is remembered in different ways by those who knew him. For some, he was a gangster who embodied the violence and ruthlessness of Manchester's underworld. For others, he was a man who tried to make a difference in his community, using his power to protect the people of Salford from the worst excesses of the drug trade. His impact on the city, for better or worse, will never be forgotten, and his life serves as a testament to the complexities of human nature in the face of adversity. Massey's story is not just about crime and violence, it is also about loyalty, community, and the struggle to find redemption in a world that is often unforgiving. His life, like many others who have walked the line between legality and criminality, was one of contradictions. A man who could be both a ruthless enforcer and a caring protector, a feared gangster, and a beloved father. In the end, Paul Massey's legacy is a reflection of the world he inhabited. A world where the lines between right and wrong are often blurred, and where survival sometimes means making choices that others cannot understand. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and as always, stay safe.